When Henry VIII came onto the throne in April 1509, no one knew what the King of England would do during his almost 4-decade-long reign. In that time, 70,000 people would be executed inside of his kingdom, but no one expected that 2 of these would include the queens of his country. Henry is most known for having 6 wives, and also for the fact he split from the Catholic Church and Rome. He is regarded as the most famous King of England, and he even executed some of his closest friends and advisors if they disagreed with him. But who were his first high-profile executions? Join us today as we look at Henry VIII's first executions, and remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. On the 17th of August 1510, 2 high-profile men, who were considered hated within England, left the Tower of London through the gates and made the short walk north to Tower Hill. This was the site where public beheadings took place inside of the capital, and Sir Edmund Dudley and Sir Richard Empson walked past the people of London before they arrived and were handed over to the axemen, who would take off their heads. Sir Edmund Dudley was the father of John Dudley, who later became the Duke of Northumberland, and his grandson was Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester, who was regarded as a favourite of Queen Elizabeth I. He had served Henry VII as a close adviser and Privy Councillor, and also as the Speaker of the House of Commons and the President of the King's Council. Sir Richard Empson had also served Henry VII as the Speaker of the House, but also as a Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Both these two had been prominent members of the King's Council and were linked to the finances of the country. Both of the men were regarded as unpopular people within England, as they became the King's most trusted ministers, and they were the chief orchestrators of the King's financial policies. It was said that they were seen to have been almost universally hated throughout England. They were accused of acting illegally when they extorted large sums of money from wealthy landowners, and of not only obtaining this money for the King, but of enriching themselves in the process. This meant that both of them were involved in increasing the revenue of the King, which was needed at the time, but they did it by imposing harsh and unfair taxes onto the country. This caused for people to suffer, and the pair were also accused of pocketing money for themselves from the good people of England. These 2 people were so unpopular that for Henry VIII to target them shortly after he came into power was a smart thing. Henry VII died on the 21st of April 1509, and Empson and Dudley were arrested 3 days after. This shows how reviled they were across England, and they were imprisoned within the Tower of London. They were both accused of plotting to hold, guide and govern the King and his council, but assembling men to undertake a coup d'état. It's likely that this was untrue, and that the men were in fact scapegoats for the unpopular financial measures imposed by Henry VII. Whilst at the Tower, plans were drawn up to help the pair escape, but Dudley in particular then abandoned his plan to escape. Parliament were hesitant initially to confirm the act of attainder. Legislation passed that would allow the pair to be executed without any trial. Whilst inside the Tower it's considered their imprisonment was rather comfortable, but Dudley wrote the Tree of Commonwealth, a treaty of government and society, and he hoped this would gain favour with him and the new King Henry VIII. He stated in this that the roots of government and policy are in peace, justice and godliness. But Henry VIII showed no mercy to the pair. On the 17th of August 1510, the pair made their way to Tower Hill. By Henry VIII's standards, their execution was a win for him. By ordering the executions of these 2, he was in a sense gaining a huge amount of favour with the people, as they were so despised. Both of them were taken up to Tower Hill, where the public beheading spot had been prepared, and walking through the short walk, they were flanked by guards. As soon as they arrived at the scaffold, their execution was prepared. They were asked to say their final words, and then were beheaded in swift fashion by the axe. With the swing of the axe, people cheered, as the hated figures were no more, and Henry VIII instantly won favour and support. The executions of Empson and Dudley were the first high-profile ones of Henry VIII's reign, in which he would execute 2 of his queens and some of his closest friends and advisers. The pair were hated across the nation, and with the swing of the executioner's axe, the old regime of Henry VII was no more. However, the people on Tower Hill that day would never have expected to see what would happen over the course of the next 4 decades, as Henry VIII reigned and became the most famous and brutal king that England has ever had. Once again, thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.